Welcome back, my friends. It's so great to have you here. How do you keep yourself feeling stimulated and excited for your spiritual practice? How do you keep yourself feeling like there's flow, feeling like there's excitement, and avoid boredom and feeling almost caged in when it comes to your manifesting practice, when it comes to your radical rituals, when it comes to your diet, when it comes to your workouts? How do you avoid that awful feeling of dread of, I don't even want to do this anymore? I'm going to talk all about that today in this episode, and I'm going to give you several different points on ways that I have dug in deep, found that passion again, and allowed myself to feel that sort of spark get rekindled again inside of any practice that I was doing, whether it was back in the day when I did bodybuilding shows for bikini competitions. That workout was gruesome, and the diet was even harder than the workouts because it was the same food all of the time. I had tilapia, zucchini, white rice, like just boring ass food. I can't even eat tilapia nowadays. It's so gross. But like between that to having a dedicated hatha yoga practice for many years, almost 2 decades, to running my business consistently, to sticking out and getting my graduate degree, several points along the way, even if you're doing something that you love, it gets boring, doesn't it? Even in relationships. I mean, we can apply this to marriages, we can apply this to friendships, we can apply this to our significant other, our romantic interests, we can apply this to our relationships at work. Sometimes, if things just get predictable, they risk getting boring. And when we get bored, most of us, if you're like me at all, you stop, right? You stop what you're doing, even though you absolutely love it. And then, like, a year goes by, and then you pick it up again, and you're like, woo, here I go. I'm back on this. And nope, I'm never going to let this go again. I'm never going to drop the ball. I'm never going to, oh, shit. Like, that got boring again, right? Like, that is the cycle. So, how do we get off that? Because ultimately, when we answer this question, what we're really saying is, how do I stay consistent? Because my dreams, my goals are that important. They're important to you. I know they are. And it's important to me that I share this information with you so that you can get out there in the world and not let your mind get in the way. So let's talk about the neuroscience. Let's talk about behaviorism. Let's talk about not behaviorism, but behavior of the brain, behavior of humans. What can we leverage from cognitive science, from psychology to help us get into the mode of seeking out new things and getting excited again? And what can we just learn from the coaching world about drive, about high performance, about getting yourself in fifth gear again and running towards that finish line no matter what? Because here's the thing, are you always going to let external circumstances stand in your way? Are you going to let your internal dialogue stand in your way? Haven't you felt like you've given up on yourself enough times already? Do you really want to keep stopping? Because let me ask you, what does that feel like eventually? It's not a good feeling, right? It's not a great feeling to go, I really wanted this and I went all in and then I just stopped. Because ultimately, what we say is that we have no follow through. We can't commit. We can't trust ourselves. And if we can't trust ourselves, there's a whole host of issues that comes from that, from not getting involved in really potentially amazing romantic relationships, friendships, not going for that new job. If we don't trust ourselves, we can hold ourselves back from speaking up and standing up from ourselves, trying new opportunities. If we don't trust ourselves, there's even connection to overspending and depleting your bank account. There's a lot that goes wrong really quickly when you don't have trust. You can establish trust over time by sticking with something. So that's why this episode is so important. I'm so glad you're here and I can't wait to get into it. So let's talk a little bit about the brain here. Your brain is ancient. Yes. even though we are in modern times, you're still running on hardware, this brain up here that is from Neanderthal, from the Homo erectus, Homo habilis, Homo whatever. Our brains actually have not developed too far beyond that. Evolution takes many, 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 many thousands of years until we see like a nice bump in the evolution where it's like, okay, clearly there's a change between that thing and that thing. But otherwise, things kind of stay the same. And that's to say that when we all lived in caves together, it became essential for survival that your brain was able to pick up immediately on something new in your environment. Novelty. Novelty is exactly what gives people a leg up to sort of pay attention to this. Hey, that person's new in the cave. Pay attention to that. Hey, that sound is new over there. It sounds like an animal. Pay attention to that sound, because if you don't, if you miss that novelty and you sleep on that, that could cost you your life. We still have that mechanism hardwired into their brain. So good, actually, let's use that, because when we leverage novelty, when we leverage something new, in other words, when we create novelty in our lives, we get that bump of like, woo, let's pay attention. This is new again. This is fresh. And we have regained our focus. So my challenge to you is, where have things gotten a little stagnant, and what can you do to spice it up? Whether that's, going for a walk with your partner again, whether that's getting curious about them again and just asking them questions like you did when you first started dating. Maybe that's getting curious with your children, your kids, and like try to figure out really what makes them tick, what they're excited about, getting into the world a little bit. Novelty for you in your spiritual practice, in your manifesting, in your radical rituals might look like, instead of always doing dance, then breath work, then journaling, you might go outside barefoot in the snow. You might use clay. You might, I don't know, paint. You might speak in a light language first, or use your body in a very gestural kind of way to symbolize animals and shapes in the forest, etc. Getting yourself in a creative mode brings novelty into any situation. I remember even getting super bored when I used to live in Syracuse and I'd drive to Oswego to complete my undergraduate degree at the time before I actually moved to Oswego. I was so bored of that drive and I would start to zone out. And like a couple times though, the wheel like moved and I felt the bumps on the road and I'm like, oh my God, I'm not even paying attention. I'm so bored. So I thought to myself, how can I bring novelty in? I remembered this about the human brain. And I started GPSing a different route to Oswego so that the territory was different. So the houses were different. So the drive was different. So I could actually see and pay attention to different things on my route to Oswego. And it immediately brought me back into the present moment. It re-engaged me. All right. So novelty, make it new, switch it up. And you guys, the other part of this is give yourself permission to do things differently. I don't know who needs to hear that, but I know someone does, because I did at some point before I could give myself permission. I had to let other people give it to me, but here it is, you guys. Give yourself permission granted, to be creative as fuck. Be creative in your relationships, be creative at your job, do things differently. Even if you're like, I have no idea how this is going to turn out, who cares? What's a greater risk? You getting bored and not performing well and stopping? Or you trying something different in it and it just might go really well? It just might be the spark to set things off. I got an example for you. One of the women inside of my mastermind, she is a director of a health clinic. And she shared with us the other night in our mastermind that she, before a huge meeting of like 50 people, a staff meeting that she runs weekly, she thought to herself, well, you know what? I kind of want to connect with source here. And I want to figure out if there's a message, a way of switching it up so I can make this meeting have more presence. So she sat back in her body. She opened up and connected to source. But she realized that she wanted to get people now to talk about their accomplishments and accolades and like cheer people on. And at the same time, talk about what's was difficult and what they overcame and what their plans are for 2023 to keep that going. Her words to us about this meeting was that it felt sacred. And after the meeting, she was overwhelmed with how many staff members were messaging her, or coming up to her, or texting her saying, "That was incredible. Can we do that again?" She took a risk. She tried something new. She brought that element of novelty and surprise in, and it worked tremendously for her and her teammates. And it really brought that sense of sacredness, that sense of love, and I hear you and you're seen. And there's time for this. There's time to have these human moments. And I guarantee it, that staff is now looking at her like, man, you are the leader for us. But also she's feeling like, man, I can do scary unknown things and the risk is worth it. Where can you bring that into your life? Where can you bring that example of my mastermind lady, my mastermind goddess? We'll call her T for short. Where can you bring in her enthusiasm, her risk taking, knowing and trusting herself here, and bringing that element of something new and novel in and shaking it up? Okay. That's really, really important. The other side of this is understanding that, sometimes you just need to learn a new skill. Sometimes you just need to get out there and hear it from someone else. You need to get a new teacher. You need to get a new book. You need to listen to a new path. This is all part of that. Make it new, even the way that you're receiving information. Sometimes someone says it and you're just like, bam, it lands, right? Have you ever had that happen to you where you're just like, you hear it a new way from a new teacher and you're like, oh my God, no one's ever said it like that before. And it just lands in your body. And you're like, that makes so much sense now. Holy crap, where was I before I heard that statement? I've heard it a million times this way, but it never really landed. And then I heard it that way. Sometimes we need a different teacher. We need just a different set of words about it. We need a different perspective to help us frame our lives, our careers, our interests, our hobbies, our routines. We need a different frame, a different way in, a different entry point. So I highly encourage you, this next point is I highly encourage you to switch up your resources, gather more resources in the topic or the area that you have interest in so that you can vary the texture of your learning. That will also create elements of novelty. Another point I want to make here to keep yourself going and keep yourself with that stamina and feeling like no matter what, even on my crappiest days, even on the days where I'm like exhausted, that I still keep going. And it's a simple one, but it's a very important point. And that point is you got to know why you're doing it. You've got to know why this task, this workout, this project is important. Knowing why is the difference between you stopping dead and letting go of all that opportunity and keep on trucking. If you have your why, you won't let it die. If you have your why, you won't let it die. So we need that clarity to get us into our heart. Because when you have clarity on why something is important, why this thing needs to keep going, why I need to keep doing this, and you think about it, you focus on it, what happens? You start to feel emotional for it, right? You start to pull in the emotional resources. And now your brain's like, whoa, we just got really emotional. That's another part of this cognitive piece where when we feel emotion, the brain really pays attention. So by conjuring up powerful, positive emotions, you can create novelty right there for your brain. Sometimes we just get like surface level cerebral and we're like, well, I got to do this because I got to make money. And then we're like, well, that was my why, Kim. And I'm like, but what, did you really feel it? Did you really feel it? Or are you just sort of like a robot, like listing off the things that you got to do, like a laundry list, like a grocery list? Sometimes that's not enough. Sometimes you've got to stick with the why a little bit longer. So instead of just, I got to do this to make money, it's, I got to do this to make money and pay off some debt. And that would feel really good because then I would have the elephant on my chest, that stress. I would have money then to go shopping. I'd have money then to go buy some green juice. I would have money then to take my friends out to dinner. I'd have money just to get my nails done. I'd have money to maybe do that decal on my car that I want to do, or go ahead and do that advertising, that Facebook ad. Or maybe I really want to do that upcoming experience with Kim and I don't have the money. But if I do this one thing, if I just don't stop, I will be able to make money and all of those things will become possible. Now, as a result of following it, playing it out like a movie, I got emotionally involved. I mean, I'm literally sweating right now just saying these things. My pulse has quickened, my breath has quickened. I'm more involved. Does that make sense? I'm more involved. All of me is in now. Whereas before it was just a little bit of me. Now all of me has re-engaged. Try to stop me now. Try to stop me now. That's what I know is going to happen for you too. You have to know why. So get clear on your why and then focus on it. See it play out, the benefits, the positive consequences of you continuing on this path. And that's going to ignite passion inside of you. And it's really, really hard to sit still and stop when you are passionate, right? I know you guys know that is true. The last point I want to make here about how to keep your practice going, how to keep your habits going, how to prevent yourself from being stuck and getting in your head again and overthinking and losing that passion is the opposite of positive consequences. And this is one of my favorite moves, my favorite cognitive tricks here is my negative consequences. You know, I just told you about how to feel into the positive. But what about the negative consequences? What if you actually stop? Well, you'd say, Kim, I won't make money. I won't sell that thing. I won't make money. Okay, so what? What else? Well, you're like, well, that's a pretty big deal that I won't make money, but all right, you want me to keep going? Okay. I won't make money and I won't be able to pay my bills. Okay. I'll ask you again, like, so what? Well, I can't pay my bills. They'll shut my power off. Okay. So what? Why is that a big deal? Why is that a negative consequence? Why are we talking about that? Well, if I can't pay my bills and they shut my power off, well then like I don't know, my house will get cold. Yeah? And your house will get cold and your refrigerator will turn off and nothing will work and what else? And then you're like, and I don't even know how to live at that point. And when you can walk yourself to that final step of holy shit, I honestly don't know how I'll survive unless I do this, you will see clearly and feel clearly the motivation to keep going. I think it's very healthy to do both. I think it's very healthy to see the positive consequences and see the negative consequences and see and feel them emotionally because both are drivers, right? That's how we move in the world. Most of us are even going towards something because we want it or we're moving towards something because we're avoiding something else over there. It's all about positive and negative consequences. We're either heading towards something because it's desirable or we're taking another path because that over there sucks and we don't want to feel it. We don't want to deal with it. We don't want to do it. Either way, they're motivators. Either way, they're motivators. The last point I want to make here is know your intrinsic and extrinsic motivators. Why? What's important to you? Why do this? So like, what is your motivating factor? I want more money. Fine. I want to get a promotion. I want to be recognized. I want to be loved. I want to feel healthy. I want to look in the mirror and feel sexy about myself. I want to impact thousands of people. I want to be able to get out of debt so that I feel like I'm free. I want my freedom. I want happiness. I want joy. I want to be recognized. I want a New York Times best-selling book. Like, these are all examples of intrinsic and extrinsic motivators. I just kind of jumbled them all together as a blend. But knowing what your motivation is, noticing what your motivation factors are, your intrinsic and extrinsic, are really, really important. because you can remind yourself of them. And by the way, if you're listening to this wondering how you can motivate someone else, that last point I just made about intrinsic and extrinsic motivation is really important. Like the person that you want to motivate, what do you know about them? What motivates them? What do they want? What's in it for them? And if you can speak to that point, if you can speak to their motivation, to what they want, their drives, you'll better be able to persuade them into like recalling and then feeling their why and getting them motivated again. Just like I'm saying you could do for yourself. You could take all of this and apply it to other people in your life. So that now you guys are running together, shoulder to shoulder, head to head, teammates, right? Rather than always feeling like I got to get this frumpy friend up off the couch, or my significant other just isn't quite as motivated as me. And he doesn't have to be, but maybe you're thinking about to yourself, I just got to get her going. I just got to get him going. How do I do that? Well, you can start by reminding them of what their intrinsic values are, what's important to them, and how does that relate to the thing you want them to do, the thing that they want to do, the thing that they're giving up on. Remind them what's at risk when they stop. Remind them what's to be gained by if they keep going, right? There's so much to unpack here inside of motivation, but I really hope that these points drive home for you that it's doable, that if you're ever feeling like you lost your drive, that you can get it back. I trust you. Sometimes I hope you trust me, and believe me is what I meant to say. Believe me that it takes a little bit of time to remember these in the moment. So I hope you took notes. Write this down. If you didn't, go back and listen to this or watch this again and take notes. Because if you write down things, you're going to retain, research shows us 80%, 80% of what you heard. And if your brain's got this knowledge just in there, that increases the chances of you pulling this out and utilizing it when you actually feel stuck or when you need to motivate someone else. All right, guys, thank you again so much for being here. I appreciate your time and attention so very much. I love you, and I will be with you again soon. Mwah! Bye, guys.